Taté is a Lakota citizen of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe of South Dakota. They are an award-winning two-spirit storyteller for outlets like The Nation, Everyday Feminism, Native Peoples, Indian Country Today, Apartment Therapy, and ANMLY.
Close enough.
They are also featured in several anthologies, including Fierce, Essays by and about Dauntless Women, South Dakota in Poems, and Everyone's an Author. They recently released their first full-length illustrated poetry book, The Trickster Riots. Welcome.
Thank you, Jill. Máme takiapi, Taté Walker iha na pijujuk pisto. Just a tatewi imachiapi, wakpa washte imantahan. I just cursed you all in Lakota. You're welcome. JK. No, I greet you all with a good heart. I am a citizen of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. My colonial pronouns are they, them, but I am in love with my Lakota roles as Ina and Inala, mother and auntie. So if you're using pronouns in those contexts, I would appreciate them. I am 20 years plus freelance and daily news journalist, which is where I met my friend, Jill. I used to work for the Argus Leader, actually. But I've been living the past 8 years in the O'odham and Peepash lands of Phoenix. And so I've only actually really done readings in the Southwest. So it's really cool to be up here where I've got some fellow friends and my tioshpe in the back. Thanks, guys. And so I'm a little more nervous than normal because I'm like, oh gosh, they actually know me and they're not gonna spot my BS from a mile away. But I appreciate everyone being here. It means so much to me. It means a lot to be here with South Dakota Humanities Council, the Oak Lake Writers Society, my BFF, Julia Tasul, who isn't here right now, but she brought me up here essentially. There was a slot in the lineup late in the game, and they called and said, do you want to read? And I was like, yes. And I was like, wait. Let me check my schedule first. But no, I jumped at the opportunity. It's been an awesome festival, so I'm really glad you could join me here today. I wrote the Trickster Riots with my now 14-year-old kiddo. They came out as trans non-binary about 2 years ago, and so their pronouns are also they, them. But they illustrated this whole thing, which is so amazing. And our publisher, Abalone Mountain Press, was super generous in letting us do that. I'm not sure other publishers would have been open to that, but so they did the cover, they did the fonts, and I couldn't get the presentation to work wirelessly. So, but if you buy the book, you can also see the illustrations, which I was going to show you. But so Tricksters, I don't want to say I identify with them because if you know anything about Tricksters, they get up to some pretty tough stuff, some toxic stuff, ridiculous stuff. But my family is here and can tell you that I'm pretty ridiculous sometimes too. And I live life as a disruptor. There's a lot of protests in my life. There's a lot of bills in the legislature. We're in Arizona, which is kind of mirrors South Dakota in some of our worse laws, I guess. We just went back to an 1800s abortion law yesterday, so if that tells you anything. And so this book sort of reflects that disruption, the ways in which I live life, not just marginalized, but also trying to make things better for the next generations, which includes my kiddo, my nephew back there, TK, and my other nibblings who are not with us today. But I'm going to start with a poem about tricksters, to sort of get you in the mood about what this book is. This poem is called Iktomi Are We. Slowly I unravel the razzle-dazzle of my once tight lines, maligned by the weight of your nightmares, kept awake within fringed plastic dream catchers. Appropriators are culture-wearing body snatchers. I hang limp and dusty over your bed, a tradition left for dead. Frantic, I spiral. Your crocodile smile flashes sharp and jagged, a haphazard slash at the many anchors I so carefully placed onto your promises, now tasting empty and pulling at me like a wind-swept broken treaty, my perfectly balanced world doomed by your need to consume. My hard-spun universe gently crashes, floating ashes blasted into the void, destroying ancestral history. Like all indigenous mysteries, you blame aliens. Tried to erase my existence, only to discover I am a persistent, tricksy spider with silk and stories to spare. I am 7 generations and 5 worlds worth of lives, striving and thriving, ready to leap off my back and attack genocide and oppression, fangs out and dripping with justified aggression, swarming settler tables set for good-intentioned war, now feasts for us colonial wars. But no rest once we've eaten, radical responsibility, hold accountable freedom. We'll create new webs, sparkling with remarkable matriarchal greatness, as weightless as a good dream just passing through, vowing to return, inspiring you to pursue resilient love, woven with indigenous ideals, strung with tensile strength, 5 times that of extracted steels. The kinship patterns of our cosmic wheels interconnect and hold those hearts ready to heal. And there's the drawing of Iktomi with those colorful baby spiders on their back ready to eat, because we are colonial lures. Thank you. Got some people coming in. Thank you. Come on in, just in time. You missed the best poem, though. I'm just kidding, no. You guys are lucky for being here, no. We got a seat up front. All right. And if you're interested in following our work, both Ohia and I are on Instagram. You can follow us at Walker Imagining. I'm also on Twitter at Mrs. T. Walker, where I wax political a lot. The Instagram's a lot more fun. Yeah. Where are we at here? So I guess one reason I love the Trickster stories, especially if you go back, so translation, lots gets lost there, right? When we look at, say, the English translation of Iktomi, we see spider, and then knowing it's a trickster, they get lumped into these negative realms, right? These bad places. But tricksters, especially across indigenous stories, aren't actually good or bad. There's really no moral aspect placed on them. They're there to teach lessons, and they're there to break taboos and get rid of those decrepit ideologies that just need to be blasted forth. They break binaries. And what do queer people do if not break those binaries? I came out in so I was in Bismarck, North Dakota. Great place to be queer. Yeah, and I remember, and my father was Catholic, and there wasn't a whole lot of space to really express that part of myself. And so it wasn't until college, and speaking with Lakota elders and talking about what it is to have this aspect of myself as part of my identity. And in a lot of, or not just Lakota, but a lot of indigenous belief systems, there's this idea of two-spirit, in so far as held like a title, like doctor or therapist, medicine person, and it became not just a box to check, right? I'm tall, 6 feet, I'm a Libra, and I'm queer. Two-spirit is a responsibility. It's a piece of ourselves that's meant for the people. And in ceremony, my two-spirit responsibility is storytelling. And I always took that to heart as both a journalist for many years. I'm working with the tribe I work for now in Phoenix as an educator, and then also as a poet. So a lot of my poems, like the one I'll read now, really follow that storytelling realm. And if you've been with any elder, and I'm not an elder, obviously, but I'm a young elder. No, just kidding. If you watch Reservation Dogs, there's a really funny line about young elders. I'm not a young elder. But there's this circular way that we go about telling our stories, and there's always a point to it. And I've never gotten past that. I really like how ideas start somewhere, and then there's this sort of life cycle they take on, and then they sort of end up where they need to be. So this is about my name, which a lot of people mess up. And as I was growing up, I tended to, I remember I really wanted to be named Heather for a while. I was like, oh, like my sister Terry got Terry. And I was like, gah, lucky duck. No, just kidding. My sister's here with us. So in grade school, there was a lot of like, did you say Patsy? Was there? No, it's Tate. Oh, Tater Tot. Yeah. Anyway, so there was a lot of, my name there's a lot of stories there. And then as I grew older, my first name is Johnny because my dad's name is John. And I just let people start calling me that, even though it wasn't a name I identified or connected with. And so it's sort of my legal name now. Doctors and lawyers call me that. But as I was coming into my identity with Two-Spirit and just that responsibility I had with storytelling, I remember Tim Gallego, who recently passed away. I was working at the Rapid City Journal as an intern and fighting with them to put my full name in, Taté Walker, or it was Finn at the time. Johnny Taté Finn. And they fought me on that. They're like, no, that's not a real name. I was like, it kind of is. And this is their diversity track for the newspaper. Like, we want you as a native, but we're not going to put your name in because it has an accent on it. And they're like, well, AP doesn't do accents. And I was like, yeah, well, we're not AP. We're the Rapid City Journal. You can handle this. And they're like, what about your initials? So after a lot of fighting, Tim Gallego sort of jumped in and was like, oh, you should just have them do it. And it was like kind of a no-brainer thing. Like, well, I've been saying that, Tim. I think he sent an email, and then it was immediately after that. They were fine. The world didn't end with an accent. And so I was able to keep that. And so every publication I've ever been with, I've made them put that accent on. So this is a 3-part poem, and it starts with, my name is Tate. That's weird. Say it one more time. I thought you said Katie. Is it short for Tatiana? Tater tot. Rhymes with latte. But you're really Johnny, though, right? Tate? Tate? There's an accent? There's an E? So it's actually Tate then, right? Whatever, it sounds made up. God, you're so extra. And it's really hard to type. Is Tate really that bad? It's a cool name. Tate isn't technically misspelling it. Jose and Chloe are real names, though. Can you just get over it? Part 2. I like your accent. This goes out to all the folks with names too thick and too sticky for colonized tongues to dominate. To those with names rejected by baby books and gas station keychains, and whose name is always spelled wrong on the invitation. This goes out to the folks with names that fill uninitiated mouths full of too many inconvenient syllables, so you learn to answer to extended heys. To those with names no one ever confuses with the Sarahs or Shans with an H that never makes teachers stumble, by the way. To those who experience roll call anxiety and get strangled with nicknames from playground bullies. This goes out to the folks with delicacy names like choking hazards, so they cut you down to bite size, mix you with raisins and mayonnaise, and drop pieces of you like crumbs to find their way back to mediocrity. To those with names translated into something more palatable for people who think ketchup is spicy, but can pronounce Sorsha and Joaquin and Charlize with perfect emphasized love. This goes out to the folks with names that get fumbled and dropped in the mud, only to be carelessly swept under a basic rug and whitewashed into a sobriquet or judged too difficult and sent to the do not hire bin. To those with names too exotic for ignorant ears that are too lazy to interrupt their status quo convos. To those with names accented with a symphony of notes out of range to the tone oblivious, so you get remixed with dead air in concert halls of generic white noise. Remember, your sticky thickness tastes like honey to those who named you, your mysteries admired and adored without translation. Love you, Mom. Remember, no trendy trinket will ever hold up to the timelessness of the alphabet your ancestors recognize. Remember to enjoy the awkward blunders of the person across from you suddenly forced to pay more attention to a name that has survived eons of oceans, explorers, walls, wars, conquistadors, settlers, genocide, the gender binary, and public schools. Make them carry the weight of your name on a tongue that's done little to no heavy lifting. Ours are names that stretch the imagination and lay the foundation to understanding who we are and where we belong. We're not some Shakespearean rose to be called just anything. Anyone lacking the perseverance to pronounce and spell with humble accuracy expose themselves as undeserving of your truest magic. Our names demand accountability, deserve practice, and exude prayer. Our names are fields of immemorial beauty, seeded with story and song. Ours are the names of ceremony, between the lips and the breath that created them, and especially if we created them ourselves. Your delicious honey name reminds the mouth how sweet decolonized lips taste when animated with totemic fluency. And dancing name full of vitality and memory, it's worth noted in every digraph and glottal stop, a trove of diacritical treasures only the worthy can find. Part 3, Taté Imachiapi. They call me Tate, the Lakota messenger, god of wind, commanding the 4 directions, mother, partner, a good relative. Mine is a hard-earned title sparkling with two-spirit responsibility. Mine honors my mini Lakota, mini Kanju Lakota Tioshpaye, a nod to the stardust in my veins, a shout-out to the Milky Way ancestors. Tate is a braid tightened with the lyrical roundness of Great Plains dynastic vowels and the sacred medicine of the prairie's punctuated consonants. My name is Tate, and there's an accent on the E. And my kiddo took the honey pot, and this is their drawing. It shows Iktomi taking a taste of that honey. And there's a line in there specifically for them, the names your ancestors recognize and the importance of having names that were given to you by the ancestors, but also names that you gave yourself. When they transitioned, they took the name Ohia, champion, and it was great because when they transitioned there, it was around puberty, and so they were doing their Ishnari ceremonies, and that came as a part of the ceremony to rename. And a lot of Lakota people have different names given to them throughout their life, and this was one of those responsibility names. So they said their name tastes like honey, and that's how they translated the poem, and I thought that was pretty cool. So one thing you'll notice about my poems in this book, there's a lot of, I think a lot of poetry tends to, I shouldn't say a lot. When I've gone to a lot of presentations of poetry, there's a lot of trauma bonding that happens, right? A lot of I've been through bad times, you too have been through bad times, and let's get together in our bad times. And I have that, right? There's trauma in my life. But I really try to spin a lot of hope into my poems too. You'll never get to a poem of mine that doesn't end with some kind of hope at the end, I guess. As a mother and as Inola, as an auntie, as someone who has generations behind them, I have to have that hope. There's a lot going on in our world, and if you don't have it, what is there to keep fighting for, right? So I hope that's what you find in my poetry if you do read it yourself. And so this last poem that I'll do is sort of an ode to that, because tricksters, for all the shenanigans they get up to, always have something to teach us. And if you were able to attend Dr. Estes' presentation last night, our histories are the future. And so when you can look back on some of these teachings and take those with you as you move along this path, you find a lot of strength there. And so this poem, The Sovereignty of Humor, is a reflection of that. And make sure you pick up Dr. Estes' book. All right. There's an expression with many uses and many meanings. It's more than a word, more than a sound. In every utterance, it evokes fun. It's a jab, a punchline, a joke unto itself. It's verbal currency, better than a passport, a priceless family heirloom, and the maker of relatives. I'm going to call on you, Auntie, to do it next time. In grade school, we learned about American Indians, or at least the stoic Edward Curtis version of how Indians were supposed to look. The vanishing race, a people sad and depressed and all but extinct. We could be vicious too in movies and history books, but always we were defeated, and no one wants to be on the losing side. These images, these stereotypes of an ever-frowning people, contrast sharply with the laughter and jokes of the Tioshbe I grew up with. Back there. Sure, there were low moments, like down to the last dollar and oh my God, call the police low, but in all that, we find reasons to smile, reasons to cheese out, commode style. That's the thing about Native humor. It's kept us alive. And all it represents isn't just for entertainment. Stop it. Auntie's back there all, okay. It's an endurance tactic. Like air, water, food, and shelter, our people need humor to thrive. Recognizes what we have survived together. By the way, I do this in the Southwest and they don't get it. They're like, are you okay? Are you choking? I'm like, I'm trying to make you laugh. Okay. It's a sorry, not sorry testament to shouldering the crushing weight of poverty, genocide, diabetes, boarding schools, massacres, addictions, and Disney's Pocahontas. Without the protective armor of Indian humor, we'd be dead inside. Indian humor says, not today, colonizer. Indian humor reclaims the life, hate, and fear and manifest destiny have tried to remove and assimilate. Resistance is only futile if you can't laugh about it later, because you realize a belly-jiggling guffaw pulls you up better than any philosophical bootstrap. Indian humor recognizes the irony in celebrating code talkers who saved World War II with the same languages their country tried to beat out of them as kids. And the irony in denying voting rights to the people who had land stolen and treaties broken to form a democracy modeled after the Constitution of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Indian humor mocks those who say racist mascots are an honor as they whoop and chant like the tomahawk-wielding savages their ancestors killed. Indian humor mocks the stupidity of white Hollywood saviors like Kevin Costner's wolf-waltzing John Dunbar and Johnny Depp's taxidermically adorned Tonto. Indian humor mocks every claim to Cherokee royalty that conveniently ignores Cherokee struggle. Indian humor mocks the ridiculous disrespect of hipster headdresses. Yes, those hot pink chicken feathers sure are secret. Get over it, you say. Trust us, we're so over it. It's you that can't seem to let go of our identities. Indian humor winks at the camera when Native women overtake the same government systems that refuse to protect them from going missing and murdered. Go Alaska. And winks again when the same face masks police ripped off protectors at Standing Rock must now be worn to save lives from a virus fueled by climate change. Indian humor is dark hair, thick, with greasy secrets you wish you knew, and cheekbones that can cut down bad spirits. Yay. It's your grandma's squinty, tear-filled eyes and soft, wrinkled hand covering her toothless grin. It's your sister's head thrown back, a gut-busting cackle spewing from her defiant smile as she slaps your arm hard. Indian humor is your uncle teasing you relentlessly with love-filled lessons, and you eventually learn the joke's on your ego, so be humble, damn it. Indian humor reminds anyone who forgets we're still here. It builds up the next generations and tells them at every opportunity not to turn back, but to keep going into the future. Indian humor is a sovereign act, and our laughter is medicine. It's the battle cry of aunties everywhere. Say it with me. Nice. And the drawing from my kiddo is very theatrical. That's what we do to survive. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for being here. There's a couple minutes here for questions. Could do another poem too, but if you have any questions about my writing process or poems or Oak Lake Writers Society, which has an amazing table out there with lots of cool stuff. A lot of my poems come from Native American Indian, Center for American Indian Research and Native Studies, Native Cairns. And it's really great that I got to work with Dr. Howe because I really wasn't doing poetry. I've been a journalist for a long time, and journalism and poetry are super similar, so it was an easy transition to make there. But yeah, no, Dr. Howe really inspired me and gave me some confidence to tell stories in that poetic way. So, did you have a question over there, sir? Or?
I think you got plenty of time. I think you got the whole hour.
Was it till 1 or to 2, or was it 1:45? Okay, cool.
The next one is video at 2.
Nice.
No pressure.
I don't think I go till 2 though. I think I go to like 1:45. So I left 15 minutes in there, but I can do another poem too. We should. Yeah. I know you really wanted to give your 2 truths and a lie. So if you wanted to introduce yourself now. Oh, yes. Ma'am in the back. Very beautiful woman.
Do you have an audiobook available, or is that something you've thought about? Or
That's a great question.
hearing you speak it instead of me reading your words?
Nice. Thanks, Terry. Give you $5 later. It's my beautiful sister. I am younger. Okay, no. And taller. That's been asked before. I don't have an audiobook. I do have a lot of these recorded, filmed. There's a really cool one if you like tacos. Like I do. There's a really fun one that was won an award in Canada of all places, and was part of Teepee Confessions. If you search my name on YouTube, you'll find it. Just it's not for the kiddies. Anyway, let's see what else. I don't. No, I don't have an audiobook, but we should make that happen. Right. Yes.
Of
course.
Say more about the connection between journalism and poetry.
Oh yeah, really super connected there. I think the biggest connection is the telling stories aspect. Storytelling, I think, happens in so many different ways. When I give poetry workshops, and I do every summer to the American Indian education system in Phoenix, there's a summer program for kindergartners through 6th grade. Really cool audience for poetry. And but one thing I tell them is poetry isn't just words. It's passion behind whatever kind of message you're trying to story tell. And so for a lot of them, that's images. So like my kiddos' illustrations are very much poetry, and tell their own story even. I mean, if you've ever seen a fantastic painting and just have been like awed by it, that's that passion happening in real time. Same thing for photographs, videos that are moving to you. So for journalism, keep it tight, right? You want to hold the attention of your reader or your audience. And I think those things I took with me into poetry. There's a few super long ones that totally buck that. Keep it tight. So people are like, come on, wrap it up. In fact, Dr. Howe, for the latest one, The Gift, actually, it's one of my favorite poems I did, but it's my longest poem. It's several parts to it. And before they put up the exhibit at the SDSU American Indian Center, which I think he gave a talk about it today there, so if you get a chance to go, one of my poems in there. But he was like, I don't want to cut any part of it, but if there's a way to make this shorter, I only have 3 panels and yours goes to 7. And I was like, oh. So we did some creative gymnastics with the stanzas. I was like, yeah, this is how it was supposed to look. Anyway, so I really appreciate that people want the full story told and didn't want to cut it. So, but yeah, so I started in journalism in 2002. And I was in high school before that doing newspaper, and I did a seminar at Vermilion called American Indian Journalism Institute, and it was there our mentors said, Native people need their stories told by Native people. And it resonated with me so much. Resonated. I'm like a poet or something. Oh my God. Anyway, yeah. there's an Adderall shortage as well, and I'm really struggling right now. So there's a, and I took that with me, right? And it was not many years later that I did ceremony in which the storyteller role and two-spirit role was sort of connected for me. And so I was hired on by newspapers like the Rapid City Journal, like Lincoln Journal-Star in Nebraska, the Argus Leader, specifically to tell Native stories. But it was at the Argus Leader where I pitched a story about a new Native business. I can't even remember what it is now, but I said I'd love to do a profile on it. It's a great business. A lot of people are going there. It's pretty popular in the Indian community here. And my editor says, yeah, but you did that Indian story last week, and I think we need to space those out a bit. And I was like, by that math, we do a lot of white people stories then. I wasn't working there much longer after that, but I kept freelancing, and I still freelance. I actually just had a story come out in Subaru Drive, of all places, about a Native chef in Ho-Chunk territory. And because freelance allowed me to do the stories I wanted to do, and that was Native stories. So I love storytelling. I love what journalism can do. The power of that First Amendment writing is something I'll never let go of. But poetry lets me be really creative in ways journalism, I just can't get there. And they don't let me use words like resonate in a cool, metaphorical way. They're like, stop with the metaphors. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I hope that answered your question a little bit there. Yeah. Yeah.
I actually have a follow-up for it.
Do it.
So, I say I'm not a poet because my poetry's not good. But, because it's like the therapeutic thing.
Right.
So, when I was in a newsroom, a lot of times I'd be, working on a story, and then I'd be, scribbling.
Nice.
And then, I think, poetry or something creative, and then I'm back to writing something that's more like journalism.
Sure.
My brain is. Have you ever done that, or has it been
Oh, yeah.
journalist, poet, and then
Yeah.
we've worked together before on
Right.
other things in between, but
And you're a fantastic writer, Tasha.
I think we were copy editing together or something.
Right. Well, and I also did your story on pottery for Native Peoples Magazine. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which Nick totally dug on in the comments. He was like, oh, the white gaze. I was like, stop. Anyway, yeah, I screenshotted Nick. I was like, it's fine. Yeah, no.
Journalism is my question.
Yeah, no, I've always done poetry, I guess. I was really goth as a kid, so, no, I'm just kidding. No, but in high school, that's where a lot of my emotions came out. I struggle verbally a lot of times, and writing stuff down has always been the best way for me to get my point across. So if I was mad at something or whatever, I'd just be like, I'm gonna write a poem about you. And I would do that. It was in 12th grade, though, AP English, that my teacher totally destroyed this very passionate poem I had written, and I was super proud of, and the kids in the class were like, wow, that was really powerful. I got some snaps for the first time. And she was like, that is not what the assignment was. That was terrible. And it just killed my vibe. And I didn't write poetry after that. And it was 2012, 2013, and the news broke that, not news, it wasn't really that much news, but it was a Hollywood reporter or something was like, oh, they're gonna make The Lone Ranger in Tonto. The movie was coming out. And at the time I'd been writing for Everyday Feminism and doing just some think pieces on just Native stuff going on, I guess. And they were like, well, what do you think about it? And what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I was like, I hate it. This is terrible. We keep talking about this over and over and over. I don't know what else you want us to say that hasn't already been said for many decades about appropriation and misrepresentation and racism in media. But it's Johnny Depp, so. Anyway, so I wrote a poem, and I think you were actually one of the people who called it out because I had a original name of F.U. Kimosabe, and then when it was going viral, I was like, delete, let's do this, Stop Misrepresenting Me was the new title or something, I can't even remember, but it's in the poetry book as the original title. Anyway, but that went viral, several million people, took a eyeball to it on my blog, if you remember what blogs are, because I was really goth. Had a dark room where I wrote my blogs. Anyway, so that came out, and people really felt it, right? Because part of it was he was trying to buy Wounded Knee, to like promote the movie. Like, oh, I'm just gonna be this white savior completely. And so poetry, I didn't know how to write about it like in a good like editorial style way. So I just did a really angry poem that people really liked. But I have notes on my phone. That's been my great help and savior. But there's like probably 50, 60 open notes of just poem inspirations that come to me as I'm writing pieces. And I'm not sure what that is other than I need to let it free flow first, and then I can get really into it. Or it's just ADHD, I don't know. But one of those things.
We're like such twinsies.
Right?
How did we not know this? Like,
Just love it. Yeah.
I'm a fellow Libra.
Oh my gosh.
I was just gonna say,
Do you
when's
see
your-
it?
when's your birthday?
October 13th.
Mine too.
No way!
Yes, sir.
What?
Yeah.
Oh!
That's fun.
I just love when the universe connects us like this.
Were you
Yeah,
born on a
no.
Friday?
On Thursday, actually. Yeah, it was like really late though. I've looked up my birth chart. My kiddo is super into it, so they've asked me. They're like, "What's your moon sign?" I was like, "I didn't even know I had one." I know I'm the scales. That's about it.
Another question.
Yeah.
Do they write poetry or?
They do, and it's super deep. When they first came out, they wrote this heartbreaking poem about. It was called Kimimila, which is their dead name, but which means butterfly in Lakota, and which I really tried to wrap their head around. You know, we had a chief Kimimila actually who is male. It's not gendered at all, and but it was such a. It connected them so much to the feminine side that they were trying to push away from, and it was people only see this beautiful feminine butterfly. Anyway, it was just devastating. But yeah, so they trauma bond in their own journal. But I'm hoping they can get to a point where it's something that can connect them with other youth who are going through similar struggles. Because it's, I think when we do share that passion with other people, that's what really makes things like poetry really, really shine, I think. So, but yeah, it's, I think the Lakota, our Lakota culture, and they're also Ojibwe, their dad's Red Lake and Muskogee Creek. And the more we dig into those cultures, the more we understand how much colonialism took from us in terms of just even the words we use, especially around gender. And so that's been a big piece of our healing on this gender journey, because the more we wrap ourselves in Lakota and Ojibwe, the more we find our ancestors really loved us for just who we were, not for what was in our pants. And that's pretty powerful stuff. So they've been doing some poetry on that, which is pretty cool. So I hope to bring that to you later. I just finished a children's book. I shouldn't say finished. There's a first draft, and then there's like several dozens of drafts left. But I'm trying to find an illustrator, and I keep like nudging my kid, and they're like, no, that was, the poetry book was enough. And it took us a while because, there's this really super secret thing about like putting energy into a creation, and you want that energy to be good. And so they used that on me a lot. They're like, I'm not in a good headspace. And they would walk away from the art, and I'd be like, okay. Right? Yeah. There's a fun 40 here. It's called The Native Vote. I want a Lakota for president. Anyway, and this was the drawing they did for that. And you've got that French mask there for the rioting. This was actually going to be the cover page. And I was like, wow, that's really dark. And super cool, but really creepy. And I don't know if we'll sell any books with that one. So they're like, that was a time when they were like, you just don't believe in my art. And I do, I really do. So we used it for the president one because that seemed to fit there. But yeah, they're super talented, really. Yeah. Mom, did you have a question? Just kidding. No, just stick
You
her.
mentioned earlier that it was different when you do different readings in the Southwest versus
yeah.
like here. Like, what's different? I can see there might be differences, but
I have so many, like, you make your family, right? So a lot of my really close friends down there are like family, and they're all Navajo. So I love them when I say, it's very Navajo-centric down there. And so, like my taco poem that I was mentioning before, it's about Indian tacos, or is it? And so when I was giving it to my friend who's Navajo, she was like, I think you mean Navajo taco. And I was like, no, I mean Indian taco. And they were like, yeah, but we created them. And I was like, I get it. You did all the things. Anyway, so if you know Navajos, you know I say that in love. And living in the valley, Phoenix Valley, is amazing because of the Native community that's there. I mean, I can really go anywhere at any time and learn Navajo, really. But also, like O'odham and Pipash, I work for a tribe that's super generous. And when we talk about, say, Native curriculum, which I know gets a lot of pushback here, they wrap into it. And so we've got little kids that are growing up with fluency that's unheard of. You know, when we say Native authors, they're like, oh, look at our whole library, that's only Native authors, right? Little House on the Prairie is nowhere to be seen. And there's some magic in that, and a lot of validity too, especially if you're a young person. So the difference in terms of my poetry, though, you know, using words like tioshpe, or even just my introduction, right? Saying I was nervous, I was like, nobody questions when I pronounce stuff down there. They're like, I could say like candy or something, and they'd be like, oh, sacred, right? There's that Parks and Rec episode where he's like, I'm not even saying anything right now. This is just nonsense. And they're like, yes. And, you know, and it feels like that a little bit. I'm saying actual Lakota words, but there's times I'm like, I didn't say that right, but they'll never know. And here I was like, oh snap, they actually know stuff here, so I got to be really good about it. So anyway, there's some of the differences.
Are you going to read another one?
Where's my time?
What
Yeah.
were you going to read last night?
Oh!
Cut you off? Sorry.
It was the taco poem, actually. And, and it's a short one too. So yeah. So some context. There's one of the folks who blurbed the book is Tennille Campbell, and she's First Nations up in Canada, and I can't pronounce the tribe, so I'm not going to try. But amazing poet who does a lot of like love and sex and indigenous cultures, as far as that's her themes that she's known for, and it's fantastic stuff like loving yourself and snagging, all that kind of stuff. Really fun. And she came and did a poetry reading that I was part of, and I was like, okay, I've got stuff about, you know, my name, I've got stuff about my kid, and I'm like, but she doesn't really fit like her poetry. So I came up with this on the fly. Gotta find it, sorry. Really trying to, and it's not working. I know. Sorry, guys. I think I'll 82. Thank you. Thanks, Mom. Anyway, and so did this, and this was kind of fun. So first of all, it was a full Native audience, which was really cool. And as I'm reading this, and the subtitle is, "It's only as dirty as you want it to be." Wink. And so immediately, the grandmas that were in the front were like, they totally got it. They're like, tacos, ah! And then I did a Native drag show, and that was really fun. And there were a bunch of folks that were like, there's it! Anyway, so that's definitely how it's supposed to be read. I've read it in front of like full non-Native audiences, and there's been a lot of like, oh yeah, Indian tacos are the best. I love that meal. I like it with beef. And I was like, like cheese, and I was like, okay, getting nasty. So it's supposed to be fun. Yeah. Okay. I like tacos. Close your ears, Auntie Karen. Just kidding. No, you're gonna love this, I think. Yeah. There's a little asterisk here that says inspired by Auntie Karen. Okay. Okay. Not even. Okay, maybe TK should leave though. Hey, I'm just kidding. No, no, he's an adult. I want you. An ache deep in my core drives me to collect the pieces of you scattered around like raw promises, waiting for me to feast. I lick my lips, salivating at the thought of your splintered fragments coming together and reforming beyond both of us. It makes me come undone. I work my fingers through a round of your sticky recipe, kneading every part of you, letting you rise just high enough. Ooh, you like it rough. A slap here, a pull there, tugging, pressing, stoking the fire, and stretching your limits until gently, so gently, I lay you flat, not to rest, but to burn. You writhe for me, sizzling with expectation. I wait, impatient and hungry for you. It is ecstasy to watch your hills and valleys slick and glistening and drowning in the pop song of anointed bluebirds. But we're not finished. Just as you're about to combust, I flip you and start the mad process over, and your body undulates for me, and suddenly your hot brown perfection is ready, and so is my tongue. Sometimes we play around with honey when you're feeling soft and sweet and warm. And sometimes we get wild like rice. But tonight, there's only meat. Let us experiment on your commod bod with dairy-free cheese that melts in my mouth and in my hand. Round in all the right places, your lovely lumps taste so good, and I moan your name, thanking the ancestors for the gift that will forever sit upon my soul and thighs. You are my deliciously undeniable fry bread. My kid did not make this drawing, it is noted. That is someone called it my Bannock boobies. So, thank you very much.